Rashida, how are you?
Oh, good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for joining me today. How's LA?
Yes. Thank you for having me. LA is beautiful. You know, we're on our second lockdown. You know, it's for me. I'm a very insular, like introverted person. So I feel like I've been training for this my whole life. Like I thrive in these kind of situations where there's nowhere to go and nothing to do, and you don't have to talk to anybody. So yeah, so I'm good. I'm actually great.
Right. Yeah, I was really excited about chatting with you today because of I know from your the questions that I sent you. I was the stuff on flow state and success rituals. That's what I really would like to chat to you about today as well. And have you? Is it just me? But I mean, I've a few people that I've also been speaking to lately. I've noticed that in this last, particularly in this, say, the last week, it feels like there's been some kind of shedding or something of energy, or like it feels like there's stuff that's kind of like leaving. I don't know. Are you feeling that at all? Or do you feel like there's, from an energetic point of view, like have you been experiencing that?
Yeah, interestingly enough. Yeah. I mean, for me, the last few years have been about transformation. And so I feel like this is kind of, there's been a lot of shedding that's been happening for me over the last few years anyhow.
Yeah.
But for sure, I mean, I just think this whole like shift that's happening now is, whether you are doing the work and into transformation or not, like
it's happening
on a world. Yeah, it's happening for everybody regardless. Like you don't even have a choice anymore.
Yeah.
So, and with that comes the shedding, right? Because that's, it's like Octavia Butler said, it's like the only truth is change. God is change. Like it's the only, it's one of, we can count on it. And so now I feel like that's just been like amplified, and, for anybody that's been avoiding it, it's like it's unavoidable now. And and a part of change is the letting go of things,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it does. It definitely feels like it's been amplified. They're saying that there's some kind of date, like the date on I think the 21st of December. Not like there's meant to be some kind of significant date coming up as well for another kind of like last date of the year. It's going to kind of create a bit of a shift as well again. I don't try to get too caught up in that, but like, because I just think it's happening anyway. Like it doesn't have to be any particular date, So, So I wanted to talk to you about today about the power of success rituals, and that seems to be something that's helped you with sort of overcoming certain challenges and just having a certain routine. Tell me a bit about what a sort of a day for you looks like, and what it can look like if you don't do your success rituals as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think my number one success ritual is just gratitude and being in a place of gratitude. And I love talking about this to people because I've just had so many very, literal situations where it's like, I know that just being in a space of gratitude, even for just a small amount of time, has brought through things for me. I've manifested things that people are just like, what? Like, and stuff that I don't know. It's like, I know what I need, and I'll put it out there. And I know it's in those moments of gratitude that all of that is allowed to come through to me. So for instance, I'm gonna give it like a small example. So I had a flight. I did a gig a couple of years ago in the Caribbean, and my girlfriend was gonna meet me out there. I was bringing my mother and my daughter with me. My mother was gonna meet us out there as well, and then my daughter and I were supposed to fly out, right? So the day before the flight, I'm like getting us ready to go on this flight. And, I had gotten us, my daughter was younger at the time too. And so I had gotten us, business class tickets. And so I just didn't have to worry about anything. She was going to sleep, we'd be taken care of. It was all planned out, right? It was going to be great. And so then that night I'm going to check in and it's not letting me check in. And the flight was like at 12 something, right? So I'm like, why won't it let me check in? Why won't it let me check in? Mind you, at the time too, I'm also juggling everything myself, which is something that I've been working on over the past few years, is like allowing help and allowing support. And so anyway, I'm scheduling all my stuff. I'm doing all my gigs. I'm paper chasing. I'm doing all this stuff myself. So it's like when I buy tickets, I'm constantly buying plane tickets. And so I buy it and then I kind of forget the details. So anyway, I'm trying to check in and I'm like, why won't it let me check in? And then I look at the ticket and I'm like, oh my God, the flight's leaving now, like 12 at night, not 12 tomorrow afternoon, right?
Right.
So I kind of have a moment of freaking out, and I call the people at JetBlue, and they're like, well, you just forfeited your flight. You've missed your flight. The best thing we can do is get you on this flight tomorrow. You lose your business class. We'll put you in coach, and you and your daughter will be in 2 different seats. Now she was like 3. So in other words, you're going to have to fight for a seat when you get there, right? And I was just like, oh my God. And then we had a layover in New York, which originally the layover was perfect. It was like 2 hours. This one now was a 10-hour layover in New York, getting us there at like 3 a.m. So in other words, no stores will be open. My daughter, I don't know where I'm going to get her food, water. I was just like, this is a nightmare, right? So basically the whole night I'm brooding. I'm like not in a good place. And I'm mad at myself because I knew this happened because I wasn't getting help. I was just trying to do everything myself.
Yeah.
So the next day I'm just like, here we go. Well, we're already packed to go. And I'm just like, damn, I'm just kind of anticipating how jacked up this is about to be. And my girlfriend who was meeting us out there, she's getting on her flight because she's on time. She's leaving from the East Coast, and we're talking, and I tell her what happens. And she's like, oh, babe, okay, well, I'll see you there. Because in other words, she's going to get there first. And she was going through a lot of stuff at the time. And we got off the phone and I sat there for a moment and I just felt really grateful, not even for myself, for her, because I said, you know what? This probably happened. I mean, this sucks. I'm about to miss a day in paradise and then my travel plans are screwed. But my friend actually needs this time. So before my daughter, my mom, and me come into this suite that we had, she's going to have a chance to be in paradise and just have a moment for herself. And I was like, you know what? That's beautiful, whatever. JetBlue calls me within 5 minutes after having that thought. Okay. I wasn't even being grateful for myself. I was being grateful for somebody else. And just for a moment, it was a few minutes, right? JetBlue calls me. They never call you, right? You'll be on the phone with them for hours, you get cut off, and then that's it. You got to start over again. They called me, and this lady was like, hey, I was listening. I guess sometimes they have people listening to the call. She's a supervisor. I was listening to the call yesterday, and she said, I just had to call you back because I didn't like the way that agent handled it.
Wow.
And she said, I'm looking now, and tonight you have the flight tonight that you're getting on. There's 2 first-class tickets 2 first-class seats next to each other. And I'm not sure why she said there weren't any seats available. And she's like, now, don't hold me to it, but let me look. And I was like, oh my God. I said, I can't even believe you called. And she's like, I know, I had to ask my supervisor if I could even call you. And I was like, okay. So then she gets back on the phone, and next thing you know, it's as if we were meant to leave that next day. Our flight, we ended up being on the exact same trajectory. Actually, no, I'm sorry. It was a different flight. It was earlier so that we didn't have that 10-hour layover in New York, blah, 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 whatever.
It worked out better.
And the point, yes. And the point is all it took was those few minutes of me being in gratitude to allow that to come through.
Yeah.
And so what I love about that example, and I have a million of these, but But just one thing about that one in particular is like, you don't even have to be positive and in gratitude all the time. You know, like it's hard when shit is not going well, you know, it's a challenge to sometimes to be in that space. But even if you can just be in that space for just a moment every day, I think that's why I really like, you know, gratitude journaling and, you know, every day just writing down a few things you're grateful for. And it never ends up being a few. It ends up being, you know, a very long list. But and then even if I'm not writing it, just thinking it, just taking those moments and just being like in awe of, you know, this life we get to live, you know.
Yeah, no, I totally relate to what you're saying. I like even just it's been just this week I made the conscious effort to write at least 5 things, and like you said, there was a lot more, and I'll write a bunch more, and I could it's just like the pendulum just sort of swings to a different way, doesn't it? It just feels like you're in this different.
It changes everything.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like because the brain's going to always sort of go into that other kind of area. It's the way the human nature of the brain does. It starts to look at the negative. It does that, and so the more conscious effort we make to look at the glass half full and looking at it that way and just giving thanks. And it's not even about being all like, all hoo-ha and it's not all, exactly rocket science, there is a scientific explanation. Law. There is a scientific explanation. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Absolutely. So that gratitude, like and writing and journaling would be one of those like a key ritual type practice that you use. Is that right?
Super key.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's, I think there's so many different roads you can kind of take to get to that same destination of being in flow, allowing things to come in, right? So there's a few different ways. I think gratitude will take you right there where you need to be. Meditation, prayer, surrender, and it's funny because they're all different techniques, I guess, if you want to call them that, but they all lead you to that same, that's been my whole career. Anything of note and that means anything to me as far as my career goes has come from one of those, I want to call them modality, but like one of those practices. And anything that I've efforted after, anything that I've, thought that I wanted and like really like efforted to get it. Either I didn't end up getting it or I did get it. And then I was like, oh, this is actually not what I want, or it wasn't a great thing, But on the flip side, anything that I have really just allowed to come in and I've just been me and I've had no effort involved, these have been the most magical, for me personally, they've been the most magical and impactful and, just things that have resonated with me and just beautiful parts of my career. But then just even on paper, they are the most notable, things that I've done and have come through in that way. Like 1,000%.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you a bit about that actually, because it is kind of hard for the brain to kind of wrap around that concept, because you think, all right, well, I've got to set goals. I need to work at them. So how do we, teach ourselves, and because it is a skill. It's something that you've got to train yourself in a way to kind of the more you let go of that thing that you're trying to chase, the more it comes to you. Like it's quite the irony
every time.
Yeah, right. So it's like this whole kind of thing of like, because the more you chase, it's basically creating this separation from it. And that's why,
right.
So when you kind of just feel, and that's why gratitude, you kind of feel like you're already thankful for what you've got.
You already have it.
Yeah. And so it kind of, and it frees you up. It frees up that space, and it comes to you. So,
and it puts you in that frequency as well, so that you can match up with whatever it is that, I don't even want to just say what you want, because sometimes what we want is not really what we need.
Yeah.
But on a simplistic level, again, just as far as universal law goes, you can have that too. I've manifested all sorts of things that I thought I wanted that I definitely didn't need, you know, but like I got them.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the brain's gonna, like, the universe is going to respond to what your brain's saying, right?
Yes. Right. Totally. Yeah, and I think I speak with youths. That's actually something that has brought a lot of purpose to my life. Is over the last maybe 5-6 years, doing DJ clinics and talks with youth. Not just, it's actually kind of great. I was going to say all over the country, but I've actually done it out of the country as well, which has been great. But one thing that I love to talk to them about is this. And on one hand, it's not to discourage from like setting goals, because goals are great.
Yep.
Goals are great. And, in my career in particular, there's been so many goals I've set, and then you get there, and then you're like, okay, so then there's what's next, and then you set another goal, and then you get it. And, and I think that can be a great process. But back to what I was saying before is like, there's been goals that I've set. And then whenever I feel like I'm efforting, to get to one of these goals, now for me, that's kind of a flag, and not even a red flag. I mean, I guess a red flag, but just, it's something letting me know, like, let's feel into this a little bit more. Like, there's a reason that there's something off. If I'm efforting, then there's something off.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like to talk to them about the practice of stillness as well, because, like we were talking about, there's gratitude, and there's, prayer and meditation, all these things that can get you into that flow. But also the stillness, what's happened for me is in that stillness, I've gotten prompts to like do things, reach out to this person. I don't know, go here, somebody invites you this, and you go. And then from that, I end up getting to these goals. Whereas, on the flip side, it's like I was efforting and it doesn't feel good and something feels off. Whereas when I get still, and then I'm just prompted to do things, and I don't even realize that these things I'm being prompted to do are going to take me directly to that goal, like with no effort at all, other than just kind of, not even kind of, just listening to my intuition. And so where I think the efforting, but then again, it's not efforting, right? It's like, when I think that comes in, it's not to say you don't work, right?
Yeah.
You do.
You got to take action.
You get to take action. You get to put in work. But prior to that, if you're just taking action, and for me, I felt like I was on a treadmill before. It's like, yeah, you're running really hard, but you're not getting anywhere. Whereas when I've just been still and not efforted, not only have things just come directly to me, but in that stillness too, like I said, there's been prompts. And then once you get the call to go to action, then when I've put action in, it's brought me, to the places I wanted to be. It's had me doing the things I want to do. But it's like, in other words, don't effort, and don't just be in action just to be in action, right?
Yeah,
get the call first. And
then,
and then in the meantime, be okay with not being in action. I know that's hard for a lot of people.
Yes, exactly. Because it feels like you're not doing anything. And
there's a fear.
Exactly. And it's like, I can, you kind of wake up one morning and you're like, I've got to do this, this, and this today. And I'll like, all right, let me meditate first. And I'll either go in for 1 hour or 2 hours. And I get up and I come out and I'm like, I don't have to do shit. It's like, like your brain's just like trying to attach, like it wants to make it feel like it's actually doing something and makes you, because it's seeking whatever story or whatever trauma is in the background. It's like, I got to get validation for being, for doing something. I've got to do this. I got to do that. It's like, so we can get triggered, by old dormant kind of patterns that just kind of put us into these exerting, I gotta do this, and consume and like, so it's like, no, I totally relate to what you're saying. So yeah, like how do you kind of draw that line, especially as a mentor for these young kids? How do you describe that to kids? Try to understand that. Yeah. Especially someone starting out to DJ. It's like, well, I've got to do this. I've got to make my press kit. I've got to get my photos. I got to
Yeah.
They've got to do it.
Well, it's interesting because, when I started doing the talks, I would focus more so on the kind of surfacey and what I felt like would be could be digested by everybody, which is just like, like you set goals, all the kind of the regular rigmarole of like being successful. But I've always told them, how important it is to be themselves, because again, in that same vein of like no effort, everything good that's ever, or anything that I care about that's ever come to me has literally come from me just really authentically being myself, right? And no effort involved. Like I just get to be me. But at the same time, going back to kind of the usual rules of success, it's like, like you got to practice, you got to really be serious about, like, if you're into it, I always tell the kids, go work at a record store. Like that's one of the best things, you can do as a musicologist, is go work at a record store, so it's like, I always told them that kind of stuff. But what I realize now, and now I'm talking more to them about the metaphysical aspects of it, and the laws of the universe. And it feels a little weird when I'm telling them like, get still, like don't do anything, But again, it's not get still and don't do anything at all. It's, get still and
it's the definition you give it though, right? It's the meaning you give. I think that's also a very key part, is the meaning behind the actions. Like it, like why, like what the purpose.
Well, the intention.
Yes, exactly.
And that's why I realized, like, in a way, I was getting it across. And now I'm much more into, like I said, I don't even really, I kind of skip over like the goal setting and all that kind of jazz now with them. And I just go straight to the, how powerful it is to authentically, be yourself, and how that can really align you with everything that you need to be aligned with, right? Or anything that you want to be aligned with. It's a matter of like getting in that frequency. But really, when I was telling them back in the day, like just to authentically be yourself, I mean, that's such a big part of it, right? Because it's presence, it's and also it's sorry, I'm like losing my train of thought. It's again, it's the no efforting thing, right? And it's again, it's not to say like you don't not practice and all that stuff. Like you do the work, right? Like for instance, for me, my first really big, or what would be considered my big break career wise, and then just on a personal level, meeting Prince and him becoming my mentor and my friend, changed my life. But just on a career level, right? That was the first big notable thing I had done. Before that, I was very much an underground DJ, And, but, you know, before I met him, I had been spinning already for 7 years. So it's not to say that you don't do the work, but after that, there is the surrender, right? And there is just you're just being yourself. And a good example, I usually tell the kids this story is, you know, in regards to him. So at the time I was, you know, I had all my little underground gigs and, you know, none of them paid anything substantial. I couldn't fully make a living off of it. I was bartending as well, you know, to supplement. And I had friends who were in the industry, and my friends that were in the industry kept telling me, like, Rashida, you know, if you want to do the gigs that actually make money, if you want to do these industry gigs, if you want to do these like Hollywood parties, you have to start playing top 40. And at the time, that was just the opposite of the wave that I was on, you know? And you know, I think, you know, as music heads, like, well, at least for myself, you know, I go into different, I go down rabbit holes and I go deep, right? So it's like, if I'm really into something, then that's what I'm on at that moment, you know? And at the time, I happened to really be into my rare groove, funk, disco. I mean, actually, I guess I've always been into the same shit, but at that time, like, you know, these are just the things that were a part of my repertoire. And it was apparently not the part, it was like not the party wave, not the Hollywood, you know, money-making DJ gig wave at all. And so all these people told me that, and I kept doing me. And I also made the decision, you know, speaking of intention, I made the decision that I did not want to bartend anymore, and I just wanted to DJ, and that was it. And so I quit my bartending job, and it was very scary. But as soon as I quit, I got a residency at this place called the House of Blues. And I'm playing there. And I'm playing, and God bless them, you know, they let me just like do my thing. And I'm up there playing all my, you know, I mean, not weird to me, but to, I guess, the average Hollywood party goer, it was like not, you know, it was like not the typical music, whatever. And next thing I know, you know, Prince is doing parties in the room next door to where I'm playing. And that's really a whole other story, because way before I met him, I told people I was going to be his DJ. Like, I didn't know if he had one, but I was like, if he did have one, it would be me. So I also called that in. But so there, you know, I am playing all my, you know, my records that everybody, you know, that all these people had told me was not going to get me paid and was not going to get me to where I wanted to be. And, you know, I get a call saying, you know, he wants me to come play one of his parties. And I was thrilled, because I could see, I was like, this is really happening. Like, okay. So then I do the party, and, you know, he's the first person there, and he comes in, and I'm playing, I think I was playing like Sly and Family Stone, and he comes up to me. Yeah. And right away, you know, we start talking about the music, and he's like, you know, how do you know all this music, and blah, blah, blah. And like, we hit it off. And it literally came from me being me and like playing, like, in other words, if I had been playing something else, I don't know, would it have been a conversation? Exactly. Maybe. But another example of that, this all happened in the same night. One of my other heroes, Cee, came to the party that night. And so I'm playing, again, just my usual repertoire. And this is back before Serato too. So it's just like I had my
your bag, all your record bags.
Yeah. You know, and it's like, I can't like change. I can only change things up so much. It's like, you have what you have. Right. So I'm playing. So I go and I put on one of my favorite George Duke records, I Want You for Myself. And I'm playing it. And, you know, I look over across the room, and there's Sheila E., who's like my Shiro, you know, I mean, she's just like one of my, like, you know, and she's talking with Lenny Kravitz, and they're just like, and then next thing I know, they're walking to me, and I'm like, oh my God, like my hero's like coming out, like she's coming over here to talk to me. and we start talking, and she's like, you know what? I'm playing on that record.
What?
And I was like, yeah, exactly. That's what I said. And I was like, what? And once again, it just proves the point of like being yourself. Listen, and that's a part of that, you know, I mean, even though I was in motion, that's a part of the stillness. I mean, that record was a part of my repertoire anyway, but like, you know, I felt that it came up in the set and I wanted to play it. And like, and here now I have, and, you know, Sheila's a good friend of mine now, but like at the time I was like, wow, like I just called it. I'm sorry. And of course, Prince, hello. It's like, I just called in my heroes.
Yeah.
Literally just off of being me. So then fast forward, you know, I went on to work with him and collaborate with him and do all these amazing things with him. And, you know, and that's really also what set a new bar for me financially and career wise. And it just like opened up a whole different world for me. But if I had listened to these people that said I couldn't get there doing things the way I was doing them, you know, which in other words was being me, like they want, you know, I had to be something else to get that. It would not have happened. And it's so profound to me. And so I like to tell the kids too, like, you know, everybody's not always going to get it too. Like you may very well be doing your thing for little to no money and it's not clicking, and it's okay, because when it does, like the people that do see you, the people that are in that same frequency, your soul family, everything else, like it will come to you. It will magnetize right to you. You will not have to go anywhere, do anything. It will come to you. So anyway.
No, that's one of the stories. I love that story. It's amazing. And I think looking back at it now, you can even from those little nuances to these dots connecting, you know, Sheila being on the record and, you know, like, yeah, it's like
one of my favorite records, and I had no idea. And it's like, and then of course I listen, you know, and then I'm listening, I'm like, oh, of course that's her. Like, what? But you know, I mean, yeah.
I asked you at the start what a day would look like without, like, if you know, like when you haven't put that time into connecting with yourself and doing that these habits or these kind of rituals where you give that gratitude.
Yeah.
What would it like? What does a day or like, because you know straight away, you feel like something's off. It's like, okay, well, it's because I haven't, you know, what does it look like? And what's, I guess, the compass? What's a sign that tells you that, like, all right, shit, I better get back into my zone, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the red flags are basically just like not feeling good, you know, feeling frustrated, feeling anxious.
Yeah.
You know, and even just the fallacy that things aren't working out. You know what I mean? Like it's not true, but I definitely can, you know, feel like that sometimes. And it's about like being like, wait a minute, no. That's not. It's not. You know, it's not true. I think that, you know, a good example for that too would be like, you know, I have a 5-year-old, and it's been really an interesting part of letting go and surrender in regards to my career, right? Having a child, because basically, I mean, since I worked up until I was 9 months pregnant, and then I had her, and basically my career was like, you know, stalled out, and then I rebuilt it, and but even getting back to like a good place with my career, I just don't have the time that I had before I had her. Right. You know, I mean, a lot of my time goes to her. And it's been interesting because on one hand, you know, I can go into the mode of feeling like I don't have enough time to dedicate to my career or even to being creative or anything, you know, because I'd be tired a lot of the time too. At the end of the day, you know, it's just like, I just want to go to sleep with her. It's, you know, it's sometimes when I'm supposed to be up working and doing stuff. And so it's been interesting because now I look back at that period of time where it felt like things weren't working out career-wise. And like I said, things were kind of stalled out. But I look back on it now and I'm like, wow, you know, things were mega slow. I also could have only done so much too. I breastfed her for like 3 years. So She was always on me, always with, you know, and, but now I look back on it and I'm like, wow, I had all that time with her. I saw all of her first, you know, and I think it was a blessing to be able to breastfeed her for that long. And, you know, and it's interesting because, you know, gigs and things did show up, especially again, having to surrender and just being okay with the way things were, because not being okay with it, seeing the blessings in what was happening. It was like, wow, I get to spend this time with my child and really, you know, be present for this thing that's never going to happen. Like, I'm not going to get this time back ever again. And sure enough, you know, all these opportunities and things presented themselves that allowed me to travel with her.
Yep.
And then, you know,
it worked itself out.
It worked itself out. And now in retrospect, I look back at the times I was stressed out about it. And I'm like, wow, I'm so thankful now that I'm like, wow, I could have really skipped all of that distress.
Yeah.
Because it was, what a beautiful time. And I'm so happy that my career wasn't cracking at the time, you know, like I'm so happy I got, you know, and then even now it's like, I'm in a really good place where I feel like I always have what I need, you know, it's always enough coming in. But if I looked at it on paper, I could totally feel like, oh, I need to be doing more and I need to be doing this and doing that. But again, it's another surrender because, perfect example, school, she's in kindergarten now, her first year of school. And this time period, I've been looking forward to this, you know, since she was a toddler, because I said, wow, when she starts school, I'm going to have those few hours to myself every day. I'm going to actually be able to like work, you know? And now we're in homeschool. So it's actually the opposite. I actually have less time now because I'm in school with her. But same thing. The great thing is this time around, instead of being distressed, I can remember what happened the last go around. And I'm like, actually, no, this is a blessing. This is dope. Like, you know, and it's going to be okay. And then the time to be, you know, I've been busy most of my life. So it's like, most of my career, I've been go, 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 go. So it's like, if I want that to happen again, I don't know. I don't know what the future is going to bring, but like that could be, and that would be great, you know, but right now it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's, you know, and I have enough. I always have enough.
I was gonna say,
we all do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lean into it.
I was going to ask you, like, did you find that with having the child, like having your daughter, that the going back to that effortless idea, that concept that we were discussing earlier, did you find that because even though you putting more time into with your daughter, work was still there and it was still available.
Yeah.
You didn't even have to kind of like it just showed you this less, what you were just explaining now, the less stress, less about work, but work was there anyway. Like it didn't really matter. So, you know, so some people get so caught up in like, with their careers, they don't end up having children for a long time because they feel like it's going to, look, you do need to give time to your child and you need to do that, be the parent. But it's I just feel like there's that sort of based on what you were saying before about effortless, like you're still doing your career, you're still working, doing your career, but you're without that angst. It's not there anymore, right? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, that, and you know, the other side of it is like, yeah, you know, you could be so focused on your career that you wait to have children. But then there's a lot of people who have children, but then they're not around because they feel like they gotta go, you know, they gotta, you know, that's something that happened with my mother. She's a musician and an artist, or, you know, and she was when I was a child, and we were poor and we were broke. And she, on one hand, she wanted to do the right thing, you know, and she wanted to provide for us, and she didn't want to be insecure in that way, you know, and so she joined the army. And that was it. I didn't spend a lot of time. I don't have she wasn't around, you know, and it sucks because on one hand, it's like she was doing, well, like what we were talking about. It's like that you feel like you gotta, because I can't take a chance. Her thing was, I can't take a chance on seeing if, you know, me being an artist is going to work out or not. I have to make sure that there is food on the table, period. And so she made that sacrifice. And also I saw what it did to her, you know, being in the army and being an artist, like, that's rough.
But there's different generations too, right? Like what the kind of information that we're discussing now, that generation, that was what they were taught. Work hard,
follow the blueprint.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then so that's, you know, the other side of that career focus is that, you know, you can't get that time back. And so I think that knowing her story, and because, you know, once you have a child, you actually start thinking about your parents and your childhood, and you're like, oh, okay, oh wow, you know, but that's been a big lesson for me too, that like, you know, even in these periods where it feels like things are not popping or whatever, it's what a blessing, you know, and truly too, I mean, I think being in that gratitude, it brings the abundance. But like, you know, I look at it now, like I would, even if the abundance wasn't flowing in, right? I can't get this time back with my daughter. And that to me is worth more than any check or any, you know, anything. But the beauty of just even being in that mindset is that then the money does come, you know? So
yeah. Just knowing that everything's gonna be okay always. You know, when you kind of like put yourself in that. And the thing is as well, what's also a bit of a caveat is that you can't trick the universe. You know what I mean? Like you can't sit there and think, well, if I just say thank you to everything, the universe is going to give me something.
No, it has to be
you know
real.
what I mean?
But back to my airplane story, you know, that's what's so great about it too. It's like you don't even have to be thankful for yourself. Like you can just be happy for somebody else.
Yeah.
And that shit will bring in,
totally,
you know, goodness into your life. So, yeah.
Totally. Well, I really loved our talk today. This was fun. That was a great chat. Great chatting with you.
I love talking about this stuff. It's like a little early for me, so I'm
bit too
a little
deep.
foggy. So I hope I got So I'm like, I couldn't even think of some of the words I was like trying to figure it out. But I hope that I hope it made
this is great.
It made sense.
Well, why don't you tell the listeners where they can find more about you? The usual Instagram, your website.
Yeah, I have a website that needs to be updated. Instagram is the most up to date thing. I'm on Twitter. I announce things I'm doing on there as well, but mostly Instagram.
Okay.
That's great. Where I announce all the things.
Well, you've been doing a great stuff this year. Giving those vibes out there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I loved the Prince tribute this year with Natasha. That was amazing. Natasha.
So sidebar, speaking of, calling people in and calling soul family in, she and I talk about this kind of stuff all the time, and she's definitely, on that same frequency. But that's another blessing of A, being yourself, but B, how that can call in all these great things to you because, she is soul family, and working with her, like, obviously we've done a bunch of stuff this year, but like both being in that same mind frame and that same frequency, like to me, it just kind of, I love that. Again, the more you are yourself, the more you are in in that frequency, the more you call in like things, right? Like-minded and like frequency. And so I love Natasha.
Well, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast today.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome to have a good chat with you. Well, I'll
you as well.
Yeah. Well, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
All right. I'll be in touch soon.
Peace.
All right. Take care. All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.